The training hall on Station 7 could hold 3,000 beings, and today every seat was filled. Stood in the center of the massive arena, her plain gray uniform a stark contrast to the colorful scales, feathers, and carapaces of the alien instructors surrounding her. She was small by most standards in the room. At 5'6", she barely reached the shoulder joints of the towering, whose reptilian body gleamed under the harsh lights. His voice boomed across the arena, his translated words dripping with contempt. For 2 years, we have tolerated this human teaching our warriors. She speaks of tactics and strategy, yet she has never demonstrated combat capability. She hides behind words because her species is soft, weak, unworthy of instructing those who will defend our worlds. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Several alien cadets nodded in agreement. The humans were a recent addition to the Galactic Military Academy, barely a decade since first contact. Most species still saw them as curiosities, not equals. They had no natural armor, no venom, no enhanced strength. Their home world was a moderate gravity environment, their reflexes unremarkable, their senses dull compared to most species. Listened without expression. She had heard variations of this speech before, though never so publicly. The head of the human division stood at the edge of the arena. His jaw was tight, but he made no move to intervene. They had discussed this possibility. He trusted her judgment. "Instructor makes a reasonable point," said, her voice calm and clear through the translation system. "Words alone prove nothing." She walked toward the far end of the arena where a massive piece of equipment sat dormant. The blade drill. Every cadet in the room had faced it at least once. Most had scars to show for it. The device was 12 feet tall and 20 feet wide, a framework containing hundreds of spinning blades set at various heights and angles. When activated, the blades rotated at different speeds, creating a deadly maze of cutting edges. The objective was to pass through from one side to the other. Most species used their natural advantages. The heavily armored could tank several hits with their crystalline shells. The lightning fast could time their movements between blade rotations. The phasing mist walkers could briefly shift out of solid reality. But even with these advantages, injuries were common. Deaths had occurred. The standard protocol was to start at low speed, with protective gear, under close supervision. Placed her hand on the activation panel. "Instructor, what are you doing?" His voice came through her earpiece, tight with concern. She tapped the settings screen. Maximum speed, full blade activation, no safety protocols. "Making a point," she replied quietly. His laugh was a harsh bark. The human wishes to commit suicide rather than admit weakness. How fitting. Press the activation button. The blade drill roared to life. Hundreds of blades began spinning, the sound building from a whir to a screaming howl. The air itself seemed to vibrate. At this speed, the blades became nearly invisible, creating what looked like a solid wall of flashing metal. The first row alone would kill most unprotected beings instantly. Removed her uniform jacket and folded it neatly. Underneath she wore a simple black shirt. No armor, no shields, no protective equipment of any kind. She stepped up to the entrance of the blade drill. The arena fell absolutely silent, except for the screaming blades. She stepped forward. Her first step took her into the outer edge of the blade zone. A spinning edge passed inches from her face. She tilted her head slightly and it missed. Another blade swept toward her midsection from the left. She shifted her weight, rotating her torso. The blade passed behind her back. She took another step. Her movements were economical, precise. She wasn't fast, not by galactic standards. Several species in the audience could move 3 times quicker, but she didn't need speed. Every blade that should have connected with her body somehow found only empty air. She ducked under a horizontal sweep, stepped over a low spinner, twisted between 2 blades that converged on the same space from different angles. A young human cadet sitting in the front row leaned forward in her seat. She had never seen anything like this. moved like water, flowing around obstacles rather than fighting through them. His eyes were designed to track fast-moving prey. He could see what the others could not. The blades were making contact, or they should be. His vision showed shirt brushing against edges that should be cutting through flesh and bone, but nothing happened. She continued walking. Reached the halfway point, the densest section of the blade drill. Here, the blades overlapped in a pattern that left virtually no safe path. Cadets normally crawled through this section or used their species' unique abilities to bypass it entirely. She paused for a moment, seeming to study the pattern. Then she moved. Her body folded and unfolded in ways that seemed impossible for a creature without external joints. She compressed herself into gaps that appeared too small, then expanded through spaces that seemed too fast. A blade grazed her hair, sending a few strands drifting away, but her skin remained untouched. In the observation booth, the human engineer who maintained the Academy's equipment was frantically checking his instruments. The sensors showed the blades were functioning perfectly. They were in the exact positions they should be. They were making contact with the target, but somehow, impossibly, they weren't. Emerged from the dense section and continued toward the exit. The final third of the blade drill featured vertical spinners that required precise timing. She navigated them with the same fluid grace, her breathing steady, her expression calm. She stepped out of the blade drill and turned to face the arena. Not a scratch, not a single drop of blood. She walked back to the control panel and deactivated the drill. The blades began to slow, their screaming howl fading to a whir, then silence. The arena remained quiet for a long moment. Then the questions erupted. Impossible, his voice cut through the chaos. She must be using technology, some kind of shield. Scan her, demanded the student. Check for active devices. Was already moving. He pulled up the arena's scanning systems, the same ones used to verify that cadets weren't cheating during trials. The results displayed on the main screen for everyone to see. No active shields, no energy fields, no technological enhancements of any kind, just a baseline human biological readings normal for her species. Then she's been modified, insisted. Genetic enhancement, cybernetic reflexes. Held out her arms. You're welcome to perform a medical examination. You'll find I'm completely unmodified, standard human biology, no enhancements. A medical team was summoned. They were thorough, professional, and increasingly confused. Their instruments confirmed what the scans had shown, was completely ordinary by human standards. Her reflexes were actually slightly slower than the human average. Her muscle density was normal. No hidden implants. No genetic modifications. How? Whispered the question that everyone was thinking. Picked up her jacket and put it back on. Humans evolved on a dangerous world, she said. We weren't the strongest creatures in our environment. We weren't the fastest or the most armored. We survived by learning to read patterns, predict movements, and adapt. The blade drill follows a pattern. Once you understand the pattern, you don't need speed. You need timing. The pattern changes at maximum speed, objected. It becomes random. Nothing mechanical is truly random, replied. Every system has rhythm, you just have to find it. By the time left the arena, the Galactic Network was already exploding with footage of her demonstration. Within hours, it had been viewed millions of times across dozens of worlds. Everyone had the same question. If one human could do this, what else were humans capable of? In her quarters that night, sat alone, staring at her hands. They were shaking slightly, the adrenaline finally catching up to her. She had walked through the blade drill before during her years in the military, but never at maximum speed, never in front of thousands of witnesses. She had taken a terrible risk today. But some things were worth the risk, like respect, like proving that humanity belonged among the stars. Her communicator chimed. Messages were flooding in from across the galaxy. some congratulatory, many skeptical, a few threatening. The demonstration had solved one problem and created a dozen more. But at least now they were paying attention. The demands for an official investigation came within 12 hours. Filed the first formal complaint, but he was far from alone. Representatives from 17 different species wanted answers. The Galactic Council authorized a full inquiry, and 3 days later, the investigation team arrived at Station 7. Was the lead investigator. She was a member of the species, with golden fur and eyes that could track movements down to the millisecond. She specialized in biomechanics and had spent her entire career studying how different species moved and fought. When she watched the footage of walking through the blade drill, she sat motionless for 2 hours, replaying it over and over. "This shouldn't be possible," she said finally, addressing her research team. "I've watched this recording 300 times, at maximum magnification. The blades make contact. I can see them touching her body, but there's no cutting, no impact. It's like she exists in a slightly different physical space." Her assistant, a crystalline being named, adjusted the playback speed. Could it be a visual trick, some kind of hologram? The environmental sensors confirmed she was physically present. The blade vibrations changed when they made contact with her. She was there. His tail twitched in frustration. But the physics don't work. Attended every investigation session, his massive form looming in the corner of the research lab. She's cheating somehow. Humans are known for their deception. Ignored him. She was a scientist, not a politician. Facts mattered, not opinions. She requested permission to interview directly. The human instructor agreed immediately, arriving at the lab alone and unarmed. Had prepared an extensive list of questions, but's first words changed everything. "Before we begin," said, "I want to show you something." She pulled up a data file on the room's main display. It showed footage from a world called Titan Station, a human colony built on a moon with triple Earth's gravity. The footage was old, grainy, taken from a personal recording device. A child, maybe 8 years old, was running through a collapsed building. Debris fell around her in slow motion, massive chunks of concrete and metal. The child moved between them, her small body twisting and dodging. She shouldn't have survived, but she did. "That's you," said quietly. "Yes, I grew up on Titan Station. High gravity, unstable structures, constant cave-ins. You learned to move efficiently or you died young." His voice was flat, factual. "I lost my parents when their section collapsed. I survived alone for 3 weeks in the ruins before rescue teams found me." Watched the footage again. The child's movements were crude compared to the adult, but the principle was the same. Reading the pattern of falling debris, moving economically, staying calm. "You trained in survival," said, "but that doesn't explain the blade drill. The precision required is far beyond basic survival instincts." "Is it?" asked. "Watch the child again. Every movement has purpose. No wasted energy. The falling debris is just another pattern like the spinning blades." Over the next week, conducted extensive tests. She wired with sensors that measured everything from brain activity to muscle response. Then she asked to walk through the blade drill again. The results were extraordinary. Its reaction time was actually below average for academy instructors. Her physical strength was moderate. Her speed was unremarkable, but her brain activity showed something had never seen before. "Your predictive cortex is running constantly," explained, pointing to the neural scans. "Most species react to threats. They see danger, then respond. But you're anticipating threats before they occur. Your brain is building a model of the blade movements and projecting their future positions." "Yes," confirmed. "That's exactly what I'm doing." "But how? The computational power required should be impossible for an organic brain." Smiled slightly. "Humans evolved as hunters on Earth. We're not fast like predators, so we learned to predict where prey would be, not where it was. We developed brains that excel at pattern recognition and future modeling. It's why we're good at throwing objects accurately. We calculate trajectory instinctively. Began to understand. So you're not reacting to the blades. You're predicting their paths and planning your movements in advance. Several steps in advance, corrected. By the time I enter the blade drill, I've already mapped the first dozen movements in my mind. This explanation raised a new question. If pattern prediction was a general human trait, could other humans do what did? The human engineer was called in for questioning. He was a civilian, not military trained, but he had lived on Luna Base, another challenging environment. "Can you walk through the blade drill?" asked him directly. Laughed, "Probably not. I'm an engineer, not a combat specialist, but give me a few days to study the pattern and I might manage it." "You would need combat training, surely." "Combat training helps," agreed. "But the basic principle is just problem solving. Engineers do that all day. We look at complex systems and find paths through them." The young human cadet volunteered to be tested next. She had no special training beyond standard academy curriculum. Was skeptical, but she ran the neural scans anyway. His predictive cortex showed the same unusual activity as, though less developed. It seemed to be a general human trait, not something unique to trained individuals. "This is dangerous information," said during one of the investigation meetings. "If all humans have this capability, they pose a significant threat to galactic stability." The human ambassador had arrived on the station 2 days earlier. She was a politician through and through, with silver hair and a calm demeanor that never cracked. She spoke now with quiet authority. "Instructor, humanity has been part of the galactic community for 10 years. In that time, we have posed no threat to any species. We share our technology. We trade fairly. We follow council laws. The fact that we have unique neurological traits doesn't make us dangerous any more than your enhanced strength makes you dangerous." "Your people hid this ability," countered. "We didn't hide anything," replied. "We didn't know it was unusual. Humans have always been able to do this. It's normal for us. Would you consider it hiding that you can see heat signatures? That's unusual too, but you don't announce it." The argument continued for hours. Stopped listening. She was reviewing data, piecing together a picture of human evolution that fascinated her. Humans came from a world full of large predators. They had no natural weapons, no armor, no particular physical advantages. So they developed brains that could outthink their environment. They learned to predict animal behavior, weather patterns, seasonal changes. They became masters of adaptation. The blade drill was just another pattern to predict, another system to understand and navigate. But there was something else in the data that troubled her. Stress hormones had been extremely elevated during her demonstration. Her heart rate had been dangerously high. She had been terrified. "You were afraid," said when she met with privately. "Of course I was afraid. Those blades are real. One mistake and I would have died." "Then why did you do it?" Was quiet for a long moment. "Because someone had to. Humanity needs to be taken seriously. Not feared, but respected. Was right about one thing. Words aren't enough. Sometimes you have to show what you're capable of." The investigation concluded after 2 weeks. Report was comprehensive and clear. Humans possessed enhanced predictive modeling capabilities as a result of their evolutionary history. This gave them advantages in certain situations, particularly those involving pattern-based threats. However, they also had significant disadvantages in other areas. Their physical capabilities were average at best. They required specific environmental conditions. They were vulnerable to many threats that other species shrugged off. The report concluded that humans were neither superior nor inferior to other species. They were simply different, with their own unique strengths and weaknesses. But the report also included a warning. Human adaptability was remarkable. Given time and motivation, humans could learn almost anything. They were generalists in a galaxy of specialists, and that made them unpredictable. The Galactic Council read the report with great interest. Some members saw opportunity, others saw risk. But everyone agreed on one thing. They wanted to see what else humans could do. The Council issued a formal request, would repeat her demonstration under controlled scientific conditions, but this time other humans would attempt the blade drill as well, not trained soldiers, ordinary civilians. The Council wanted to know if it was exceptional, or if she represented standard human capability. Agreed to the request, but she added a condition of her own. If we're going to do this, she told, we need to make it count, not just a demonstration, a teaching moment. Show them what humans are really about. Smiled, what did you have in mind? Let me train complete beginners, people with no combat experience. Show the Council that what I did isn't about being special, it's about being human. The specialized research facility was located on a neutral station orbiting a dead star. No political affiliations, no military presence, just pure scientific observation. Representatives from 40 species gathered to witness what the Council was calling the Human Capacity Assessment. Stood in the observation deck, watching as the research team prepared the testing arena below. Beside her stood 3 other humans, each selected specifically because they represented ordinary human capability. Was a combat trainer, but his specialty was teaching defensive techniques to civilians. He was in his 40s, built solid but not imposing. He had never served in active military duty. Was a neuroscientist who had spent her entire career studying human brain function. She was small, wore thick glasses, and by her own admission had never been athletic. Was the most ordinary of all. He was a 22-year-old student studying agriculture. He had joined the Academy's civilian education program just 6 months ago and had no combat training whatsoever. I can't believe I agreed to this, muttered, staring down at the blade drill in the arena below. You can back out, said. No one will think less of you. Yes, they will, replied. The whole galaxy is watching. He was right. The demonstration was being broadcast live across the galactic network. Billions of beings were tuning in to see if his performance had been a fluke, or if humans truly possessed some unusual capability. The Crystalline Council representative entered the observation deck. His body refracted light in rainbow patterns, making him difficult to look at directly. He had been the most vocal skeptic during the investigation. The testing will begin in 1 hour, he announced. Each human will attempt the blade drill at progressively higher difficulty levels. Full medical monitoring, complete sensor coverage. We will have definitive answers today. Was scheduled to go first. She had requested this specifically, wanting to approach the challenge scientifically. She spent the hour before her attempt studying the blade patterns, taking notes, running calculations on a data pad. When she stepped into the arena, she looked completely out of place. She wore standard protective gear, which the other humans had declined, and she moved with the cautious deliberation of someone who spent most of their time in laboratories. The blade drill activated at low speed, approached slowly, watching the blade spin. Then she stepped forward. Her movement was nothing like fluid grace, moved mechanically, almost robotically. She would stop, observe, calculate, then move to the next safe position. It was painfully slow. Several alien observers laughed. But she didn't get hit. She made it through the low-speed setting without a scratch. The arena erupted in surprised chatter. Increase to medium speed, ordered. The blade spun faster. Its methodical approach became problematic. She couldn't pause long enough to calculate every movement. Halfway through, a blade clipped her shoulder, tearing her protective suit. She stumbled but didn't fall. She adjusted her strategy immediately, moving faster, relying less on calculation and more on intuition. Her brain, trained in rapid data processing, began predicting patterns on the fly. She made it through. Fascinating, breathed, reviewing the neural scans. Her approach is completely different from S, uses instinct shaped by experience, is using pure cognitive modeling, but both methods work. Went next. He declined protective gear entirely, wearing only a simple training outfit. When the blade drill activated at medium speed, his approach was different again. He moved like he was sparring with an opponent, flowing, responsive, treating each blade as if it were an attacker to be evaded. His years of teaching defensive movement showed in every step. He made it through medium speed easily. At high speed, he struggled. The blades were faster than any opponent he had trained against. He took several hits, minor cuts that drew blood but nothing serious. But he adapted quickly, his body learning the rhythm even as he moved. He completed high speed with visible effort, breathing hard, bleeding from a dozen small wounds. But he had made it. 2 for 2, observed. But these humans have training, the student will fail. Had been watching both attempts carefully. When his turn came, he looked terrified. His hands were shaking as he approached the blade drill. Start at low speed, said through the communication system. Remember what we practiced. Don't think about the blades as threats. Think of them as a puzzle. The blade drill activated, stepped forward and immediately got hit. A blade caught his arm, spinning him around. He stumbled backward out of the danger zone. The alien observers murmured. Finally, proof that not all humans could do this. But didn't give up. He approached again, more carefully this time. He got 3 steps further before another blade caught him across the chest, knocking him down. This is pointless, said. The human lacks the capacity. His voice was sharp. He gets 5 attempts, that was the agreement. Stood up, breathing hard. Blood ran down his arm from the first hit. He walked back to the starting position. His 3rd attempt was better. He made it halfway through before getting hit. His 4th attempt, he made it 3/4 of the way. The alien observers had gone quiet. They were watching something they hadn't expected, was learning, visibly, rapidly learning. His 5th attempt completed the low-speed setting. He stood at the exit, shocked at his own success. He had made it through, barely, clumsily, but he had made it. Increase to medium speed, ordered. Wait, protested, he needs rest. The agreement was 5 attempts per difficulty level. We will see how far human learning can progress. Attempted medium speed 5 times. He failed all 5, taking increasingly severe hits. By the end, he was bleeding from multiple wounds and could barely stand. But the data told an incredible story. Reviewed the neural scans with growing excitement. Look at this. His predictive modeling is improving with each attempt. His brain is building a more accurate simulation of the blade patterns. The learning curve is exponential. How long would it take him to master medium speed? Asked. Ran calculations. Based on his progression rate, maybe 20 attempts, 30 at most. That's impossible, said. It takes our cadets hundreds of attempts to master medium speed. Your cadets are fighting their instincts, explained. They have evolved responses that work against them here. Fast reflexes make them react to individual blades instead of seeing the pattern. Enhanced senses overwhelm them with too much information. Doesn't have those advantages, so he doesn't have those handicaps. The final test was for herself. The council wanted to see her perform at maximum difficulty again, this time with every possible sensor active. Stepped into the arena. The blade drill activated at maximum speed, the blades becoming a screaming wall of death. She walked through it exactly as she had before, fluid, calm, untouched. But this time, the sensors captured everything. The micro-adjustments in her posture, the subtle weight shifts, The way her eyes tracked not individual blades but the spaces between them. The neural activity that showed her brain processing hundreds of variables simultaneously. When she emerged, was silent for a long moment. "I have lived 300 years," he said finally. "I have studied combat techniques from 1,000 species. I have never seen anything like this. Not because it is impossible, but because it should not be necessary. You have no armor, no enhanced reflexes, no biological advantages, yet you survive through pure cognitive adaptation." "We survive," said quietly, "because we have to. That's what humans do. We adapt." The assessment continued for 3 more days. The research team tested various scenarios, different blade configurations, unpredictable patterns. The results were consistent. Humans could learn to navigate the blade drill faster than any other species, not because they were physically superior, but because their brains were optimized for adaptive learning. They identified patterns quickly, adjusted strategies rapidly, and improved with each attempt. But there was another discovery, one that troubled some of the observers. Requested permission to attempt the blade drill using human techniques. Agreed to teach him. She spent 6 hours explaining the principles: pattern recognition over reaction, prediction over speed, calm analysis over instinctive response. Attempted the drill at low speed using these techniques. He succeeded. It was crude, halting, nothing like performance, but he made it through by consciously suppressing his natural reflexes and forcing himself to think like a human. "This is disturbing," he admitted afterward. "My entire body screams to react faster, to trust my reflexes. Fighting against my own instincts feels wrong." "Now you understand," said. "It's not that other species can't learn this. It's that everything in your evolution tells you not to. Humans don't have that problem. We learned early that our instincts alone wouldn't save us." The assessment concluded with a comprehensive report. Human cognitive flexibility was confirmed as exceptional. Their ability to override instinctive responses and adopt new strategies was unmatched in the known galaxy. But the report also noted that this capability came with costs. Humans were more prone to psychological stress. They questioned themselves more. They struggled with instinctive decisions that other species made effortlessly. Delivered the final summary to the council. "Humans are not superior," he said, "but they are fundamentally different. They approach problems as puzzles to be solved rather than obstacles to be overcome with force. This makes them dangerous in ways we did not anticipate, not because they will attack us, but because they will outthink us if we're not careful." A council member from the warrior caste bristled. "You suggest we should fear them?" "No," said. "I suggest we should learn from them, as they are willing to learn from us." Back on Station 7, received a message from the council. They were offering her a new position, Director of Cross-Species Combat Studies. Her mandate would be to develop training programs that combine the strengths of different species. She accepted, but she added one condition: would be her first assistant instructor. The young student who had failed so many times, but kept trying anyway, embodied everything wanted to teach the galaxy about humanity. Not that they were the best, but that they never stopped learning. 3 months after the assessment, the Galactic Academy's main arena was packed beyond capacity. What had started as a scientific inquiry had become something else entirely. A spectacle, a competition, a challenge to humanity's growing reputation. Stood in the center of the arena, his massive armored body gleaming under the lights. He was a member of the species, warriors known throughout the galaxy for their strength and resilience. He held the Academy record for the blade drill, completing maximum difficulty in 43 seconds. "I respect what the humans have demonstrated," announced, his voice amplified across the arena. "But respect must be earned continuously, not given once and forgotten. I propose a formal competition. the finest blade runners from various species against humanity's volunteers. Let us see if human adaptability can match specialized evolution. The crowd roared approval. This was what they had come to see, not sterile scientific tests but direct competition. Stood in the human observation box, his expression tight. This was a political trap. If humans refused, they would appear cowardly. If they accepted and lost, their credibility would be damaged. If they won through their trained individuals, critics would claim it proved nothing about general human capability. "We need to decline," advised the Academy's human administrator. He was a strategist by training, and he could see the angles of this challenge. "There's no winning scenario here." But the human ambassador saw something different. "There's one winning scenario. We accept, but we change the terms." She walked down to the arena floor, her diplomatic credentials granting her access. The crowd quieted as she approached. "Humanity accepts your challenge," she said clearly, "but with a modification. You propose that specialists compete against specialists. That proves nothing. Instead, we propose this. Your champions compete against human civilians, people with no combat training, no military background, true ordinary individuals." Translator rendered his rumbling laugh. "You would send untrained humans against the galaxy's finest. That is suicide, not competition." "Is it?" 3 months ago, a human agriculture student completed the blade drill at low speed with only 5 attempts. No training, no experience, just human learning capability. We believe that with minimal instruction, ordinary humans can match your specialists. Are you willing to test that claim? The crowd erupted in excited chatter. This was unprecedented, deliberately choosing disadvantaged competitors. Considered, if he refused, he would appear afraid of civilians. If he accepted and won, it would prove nothing beyond the obvious. But if he accepted and lost? His warrior pride made the decision for him. "Agreed, choose your civilians. We will choose our champions, 1 week to prepare. Then we compete." Assembled an unusual team. She put out a call for volunteers across the human settlements, asking specifically for people with no combat background. Hundreds applied. She selected 3. Was a dancer and choreographer from Luna Colony. She was 31, graceful, artistic, and had never thrown a punch in her life. She understood movement and rhythm, which believed would translate to understanding blade patterns. Minyu was a 45-year-old medical officer from a civilian hospital. He was methodical, analytical, and according to his own admission, clumsy. But he approached every problem like a diagnosis, breaking it down into manageable components. The third volunteer surprised everyone. It was. "I am not human," the reptilian instructor acknowledged, "but I wish to compete using human techniques, to prove that what you teach can work for any species willing to learn." Accepted him immediately. The opposing team was formidable. Himself would compete, along with 2 other legendary blade runners. Shrike, a avian species with reaction times measured in microseconds, and a phasing species who could briefly become intangible. The competition structure was simple. Each competitor would run the blade drill 3 times at increasing difficulty. Scores based on completion time and damage taken. The team with the best combined score would win. Had 1 week to teach her volunteers. She spent the first day just talking, explaining the philosophy, not the technique. "The blade drill isn't about being fast," she told. "It's about being right. Every movement has to have purpose, like dance. You don't move randomly, you move with intention." Nodded slowly. "So I'm choreographing a dance with the blades as my partners." "Exactly. They follow a pattern, you learn the pattern, then you dance." With Minyu, she took a different approach. "Imagine you're performing surgery. You don't rush, you don't guess. You observe, plan, execute. The blades are just another system to navigate." Minyu understood immediately. "It's about reducing variables. isolating the pattern, treating it as a problem to solve. Yes, and you're very good at solving problems. Required the most work. His instincts were powerful, evolved over millions of years. Asking him to ignore them was like asking him to stop breathing. Your species has survived this long for a reason, told him. Your instincts work, but the blade drill isn't a natural environment. It's an artificial challenge that your evolution never prepared you for. To beat it, you have to think differently. How do you turn off evolution? Asked, frustrated. You don't turn it off. You redirect it. Your instinct says react fast. Instead, use that speed to process information faster. Your instinct says trust your reflexes. Instead, trust your pattern recognition. You already have all the tools. You just need to use them differently. The training was grueling. All 3 volunteers failed repeatedly. Took dozens of hits learning that the blade patterns weren't quite like dance rhythms. Minyu overthought everything, trying to calculate too precisely. Kept reverting to his reflexes whenever he got nervous. But they improved rapidly. By day 4, could complete low difficulty without getting hit. Her movements had an artistic quality that was beautiful to watch. She flowed between the blades like she was performing. Minyu mastered medium difficulty through pure systematic analysis. He had documented every blade pattern, categorized the variations, and developed a decision tree for navigation. It was the least elegant approach possible, but it worked. Struggled the most, but when he finally completed low difficulty using human techniques, his roar of triumph shook the training facility. Competition day arrived. The arena was packed with representatives from every major species. The galactic networks were broadcasting to trillions of viewers. This was no longer just about the blade drill. It had become a referendum on humanity's place in the galaxy. The first round was low difficulty. The alien champions went first. Shrike completed it in 8 seconds, a blur of motion so fast the sensors could barely track her. Phased through the blades, completing it in 12 seconds by occasionally becoming intangible. Relying on pure armor, took several hits but powered through in 15 seconds. Then came the humans. Stepped into the arena. The crowd murmured. She looked fragile compared to the armored champions. She wore a simple bodysuit with no protection. The drill activated, began to move. It was nothing like the speed of the champions. She was slow, deliberate, flowing between the blades with artistic precision. She made it look easy, natural, like the blades were part of a performance she had rehearsed. She completed it in 38 seconds, untouched. The crowd was silent. It wasn't the fastest time, but it was perfect. No hits, no mistakes, just pure technique. Minyu went next. His approach was mechanical, almost robotic. He would pause, observe, move, pause again. It took him 52 seconds. But like he took 0 damage. Was last. He stepped into the drill with visible tension. His natural instincts screamed at him to move faster, react quicker. He forced himself to slow down, to think, to predict. He completed it in 41 seconds, taking 2 minor hits where his instincts overrode his training. But he had done it, a non-human using human techniques. Round 2 was medium difficulty. The champions maintained their dominance in speed, but both shrank and took damage, their specialized approaches less effective at higher difficulty. Completed medium difficulty in 97 seconds, untouched. Her dance-like movement adapted perfectly to the increased complexity. Minyu struggled, but completed it in 130 seconds with minimal damage. Failed. His instincts took over halfway through, and he reverted to relying on his natural speed. He took multiple hits and had to withdraw. The final round was maximum difficulty. Went first. This was his specialty. His armor could withstand incredible punishment. He charged through the blades, taking dozens of hits but never slowing. 43 seconds, a new personal record. Shrike attempted maximum difficulty and failed. Her speed wasn't enough. The pattern was too complex. Completed it through extensive use of phasing, essentially cheating through the most dangerous sections. Then attempted maximum difficulty. She stood at the entrance for a long moment, studying the pattern. The blades at this speed were barely visible, a screaming wall of death. She stepped forward. Her movement was extraordinary. Every shift of weight, every rotation of her body was precise. She treated the deadly blades like dance partners, moving with them rather than against them. Halfway through, she actually paused, standing still in a gap between blades, waiting for the pattern to rotate to her next position. She completed it in 112 seconds. 0 damage. The arena erupted in chaos. Beings were standing, shouting, arguing. A civilian human with dance training had just matched specialized champions at maximum difficulty. Minyu declined to attempt maximum difficulty. "I know my limits," he said simply. "I could probably complete it given enough attempts, but not today." The scores were tallied. Based on combined time and damage, the results were close. The alien champions had speed. The humans had precision. It was declared a draw. But everyone in the arena knew what they had really witnessed. Ordinary humans, given less than a week of training, had competed successfully against the galaxy's specialized champions. After the competition, approached privately. "Teach me," he said simply. "You want to learn human techniques. I want to understand them. I have relied on my armor for 200 years. But I watched that dancer move through blades that should have killed her, and she made it look beautiful. There is wisdom in your methods." Word spread quickly. Within days, received requests from instructors across the galaxy. They wanted to learn human training techniques, not to become human but to understand the principles of adaptive learning. Had been right about one thing: this competition had been a trap. But it turned out to be a trap for the galaxy's assumptions, not for humanity. 6 months had passed since the competition. Stood in her new office on Station 7, looking out at the training halls below. The academy had changed dramatically in that short time. Where once the training areas had been segregated by species, now they were mixed. Armored practiced alongside Agile. Crystalline worked with phasing mist walkers. And humans moved among them all, not as curiosities but as equals. The position of Director of Cross-Species Combat Studies had turned out to be far more work than had anticipated. She was developing new training programs, writing curriculum, consulting with instructors from dozens of species. But it was satisfying work, important work. Entered the office carrying a stack of data pads. The young cadet had grown in confidence over the past months, assisting with research and instruction. "The latest enrollment numbers," said, setting down the pads. "We have 327 students signed up for the new adaptive training program, 42 different species." "How many are human?" "Only 18. Most are aliens who want to learn our techniques." Smiled. That was exactly what she had hoped for. This wasn't about human dominance. It was about sharing knowledge, building bridges between species. A message chimed on her console. It was from, requesting her presence in the main conference hall. The Galactic Council was visiting today, and they wanted to observe the new training programs. Made her way to the conference hall, where a dozen council members had gathered. Was among them, his crystalline body refracting the light into rainbow patterns. "Director," he greeted her formally, "the Council wishes to review the results of your integration program. We have received both praise and criticism regarding your methods. We would like to see them in action." "Of course, follow me." She led them to Training Hall 7, where was conducting a mixed-species class. The reptilian instructor had become one of the program's strongest advocates after learning human techniques himself. 20 students of various species were attempting a modified blade drill. This version ran at low speed with safety protocols, designed for teaching rather than testing. The key, was explaining, is to see the pattern as a whole, not as individual threats. Your instincts will tell you to react to each blade. You must train yourself to ignore that impulse. A young student, heavily armored, attempted the drill. He kept trying to power through the blades, relying on his natural defenses. He took multiple hits. "Stop," commanded. "You're fighting the exercise. What did I just tell you?" "See the pattern, not individual blades," the student recited. "Then do it, watch." Activated his section of the drill and walked through it smoothly, using the human techniques had taught him. "I am slower than you. My armor is lighter than yours, but I took 0 damage because I predicted the pattern. Try again." The student attempted again. This time he slowed down, observed more carefully. He still took hits, but fewer. Progress. Watched with great interest. "Your methods are spreading beyond combat training, I understand." "Yes," confirmed. "We've applied the same principles to engineering, medicine, logistics. Pattern recognition and adaptive learning work in any field." She took them to another facility where was conducting research. The neuroscientist had left her previous position to join the Academy's research division. "We're studying how different species process information," explained, showing neural scans on a large display. "Each species has evolved cognitive shortcuts optimized for their environment, but those shortcuts can become limitations in new situations. We're teaching students to recognize when their natural responses are helpful and when they need to override them." A council member, a floating gas-based entity, questioned this approach. "You're teaching beings to fight their own nature. Is this not dangerous?" "We're teaching beings to have choices," corrected. "Your nature is valuable, but situations change. Being able to adapt your thinking to new circumstances is survival, not denial of self." The council tour continued throughout the day. They observed engineering students solving problems using combined techniques from multiple species. They watched medical training where doctors learned to anticipate complications by studying patterns from different biological systems. But the most impressive demonstration came from an unexpected source. In the main arena, had established a new program she called movement integration. She taught dance to anyone interested, regardless of species. The class they observed included beings with 2 legs, 4 legs, 6 legs, wings, tentacles, and one that simply floated. "Dance is about working with your body, not against it," explained to her diverse students. "Each of you moves differently. That's not a limitation. That's your unique expression. Today we're going to create a group performance where every species contributes their natural movement style." The resulting performance was chaotic and beautiful. Species that had never tried to move in coordination were creating art together. It wasn't perfect, but it demonstrated something profound. Cooperation didn't require uniformity. Watched the entire performance in silence. When it ended, he spoke quietly too. "6 months ago, I feared humanity. I believed your adaptability would allow you to dominate other species. I was wrong." "We don't want to dominate," said. "We want to belong." "I understand that now, but I have a new concern. Your methods are effective, too effective. What happens when the entire galaxy learns to think like humans? Do we lose our diversity, our unique perspectives?" Had thought about this question many times. We're not teaching everyone to think like humans. We're teaching everyone to have the option. Still thinks like most of the time. But when he encounters a problem that his natural approach can't solve, now he has other tools. That doesn't erase who he is. It adds to who he is. And if a species refuses to learn, if they choose to remain purely themselves, then they remain purely themselves. This isn't mandatory, it's an opportunity. The council concluded their visit with a formal meeting, presented her report on the program's first 6 months. The numbers were impressive. Injury rates in training had dropped 40%. Cross-species cooperation exercises showed 60% improvement. Problem-solving assessments revealed that students using integrated techniques outperformed those using single-species approaches. But the most significant change was cultural. For the first time, told the council, students are voluntarily forming mixed-species study groups. They're seeking out perspectives different from their own. They're teaching each other. The academy is becoming what it was always meant to be, a place where the galaxy learns together. Delivered the council's decision. The integration program will be expanded. We are authorizing the establishment of similar facilities on 10 additional stations. Director, you will oversee this expansion. After the council departed, returned to Earth for the first time in over a decade, she needed to visit the place where this journey had begun. Titan Station had been rebuilt since the disaster that killed her parents. It was now a thriving colony, its dangerous environments tamed by modern technology. But the memorial stood at the site of the old collapsed section. Stood before it, reading the names of those who had died. Her parents' names were there, along with hundreds of others. I did it, she whispered to the memorial. I showed them what humans can be, not because we're the strongest or the fastest, but because we survive, we adapt, we learn. She thought about the child she had been, trapped in the ruins, finding patterns in falling debris, learning to move through chaos. That terrified child had grown into someone who taught the galaxy that survival wasn't about being invincible. It was about being flexible. A message came through on her communicator. It was from her former assistant who now ran his own training program. Director, you need to see this. We have our first student who has completed maximum difficulty blade drill using integrated techniques. It's not a human. It's a mist walker who learned phasing control from human predictive methods. The combination is incredible. Smiled. This was what success looked like. Not humans dominating the blade drill, but every species finding new ways to excel by learning from each other. She returned to 7 to find her office filled with requests. Scientists wanting to study human learning patterns. Instructors wanting training in adaptive teaching methods. Military leaders asking for consultation on tactical flexibility. And one request that stood out from the rest. The council wanted to establish a new position. Galactic Integration Coordinator, someone who would travel between worlds, teaching the principles of adaptive learning, building bridges between species. They wanted for the role. She considered refusing. The position would mean constant travel, no permanent home, years away from familiar faces. It would be exhausting, demanding, perhaps impossible. But it would also be important. She accepted. Would take over as Director of Cross-Species Combat Studies at 7. She was ready, had made sure of it. Before left on her first assignment, requested a private meeting. I owe you an apology, the reptilian instructor said. 2 years ago I called your species weak, unworthy. I was wrong. You weren't entirely wrong, replied. We are weak in many ways, but we learn to survive anyway. That's what I misunderstood. I thought strength meant never being vulnerable, but you taught me that real strength is knowing your vulnerabilities and finding ways to work around them. He paused. There's something I want to show you. He led her to the training hall and activated the blade drill at maximum difficulty. Then he walked through it using pure human techniques. No reliance on his natural speed or reflexes, just pattern recognition, prediction, and calm execution. He completed it perfectly. I will never be as good at this as you, said. My instincts are too strong, but I can do it now. And that means my students who are younger and more flexible in their thinking will do it even better. In a generation, my species will have 2 approaches to challenges. Our natural way and the adaptive way will be stronger for having both. Felt tears forming in her eyes. This was why she did this work, not to prove human superiority, but to give everyone more choices. Her final night on 7, stood in the empty training hall where she had first walked through the blade drill. She activated it one more time at maximum difficulty. She stepped forward, moving through the spinning blades with the fluid grace that had started everything. But this time, she wasn't thinking about proving anything. She was just moving, letting her body and mind work together in perfect harmony. When she emerged untouched on the other side, she deactivated the drill and spoke to the empty arena. "We don't survive because we're the strongest," she said, repeating the words she had told the memorial. "We survive because we refuse to stop learning." The next morning, she boarded a transport bound for the Andromeda sector. Her new assignment was to teach integration principles to a cluster of species who had been isolated from the galactic community for centuries. It would be difficult, they would be skeptical, they might refuse to learn. But wasn't worried. She was human. Adaptability was what humans did best. And she had the rest of the galaxy to prove it too.